Braiding hair, hey, it seems like a pretty simple thing. Lots of people do it. But do you need to have a license to do it? Takes us to this week's case. It involves a real woman in Tennessee who was running a beauty parlor. Fatou Diouf was her name, and she had employed various people who were braiding hair. It turned out, unbeknownst to her, the state of Tennessee required that people who braid hair in a beauty parlor for money must have a specific license. Her gals did not have that license, and the state fined her. They fined her $16,000, $16,000. Well, she didn't have $16,000, so she worked to deal with the state and started paying $830 a month to pay off the fine. But what she didn't know is in another part of the country, over in Salt Lake City in Utah, there were 14 people who faced a similar situation when the state of Utah said they had to have a similar kind of license to braid hair, and they said, well, we're going to fight this. And fortunately, they found a nonprofit organization, Institute for Justice, who was going to bat for them. And the Institute for Justice, on behalf of these 14 shop owners, brought suit, contended that the license was unconstitutional. Unconstitutional because the state had not shown any compelling interest to require people who braid hair to have a license. I mean, cosmetologists, the people who actually work in beauty parlors, many times need to have licenses. Almost in all states need to have licenses because they're engaged with dealing with toxic materials, hair dyes, the materials that are used to actually form permanents and various other things. And therefore, there is a risk to the public if they misuse these things and can cause injury. That gives the state a reason for having to require these people to have licenses. But when it comes to braiding hair, the argument was made to the federal district court, you don't have to. You don't have to exercise any particular kind of care. The worst thing you can do is maybe make the braids a little too tight and cause some loss of hair, but not a major injury, not a major problem. Therefore, it's unconstitutional because the state hasn't shown a need for it. And guess what? The federal district court said, you guys are right. You guys are right. This is unconstitutional. It should not be enforced, and therefore you don't have to pay a fine. But what about our gal back in Tennessee? Well, she's in a different state involving a different law, and she is still paying $830 a month to try and pay off this $16,000 fine. So what do we learn from this? What we learn from this is that states, not uncommonly, in this instance there are 23 states requiring a special license for braiding hair. Some of those states are now proceeding to repeal those licenses, but many states still have them on the book. And in Utah, we found that that particular requirement was unconstitutional. It doesn't make it unconstitutional in all states. It just made the Utah law unconstitutional. Everybody would have to litigate this in their own states. And many people, just like getting a parking ticket, will say, I'll pay it instead of fighting it because it's cheaper to do that. And a lot of people in business say, I'm here to run this business, not to be engaged in litigation. And it's a decision that people have to make. Sometimes you can find public institutions, public service organizations such as the Institute of Justice that can help you out. But many times people have to go it alone. They look at the cost versus the benefit to them, and they say, I will just pay the fine. Does that make it, the law, constitutional? No. And as a result, we find sometimes people are paying fines, engaged in actually making payments to states that really they don't have to if they would challenge it. Okay, we bring you this case, we bring cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.